I am a pretty outgoing person. I've always thought of myself, for the most part, in my adult life as an outgoing person. But honey, it has not always been that way. Growing up as a kid, I was really spunky. I was really talkative. I was super friendly. I used to run with all the boys. I used to be getting in the dirt and the mud and playing around. I think I even told my mom at one point that I wasn't going to wear dresses anymore. I just told her that's not going to be in my wardrobe anymore because I needed to have the freedom and the flexibility to run around. That's the kind of little kid I was. But when I started to go through puberty, everything started to change. Everything in my life started to change. And I started dimming my light, quieting my spunkiness and all my energy, and I started playing small. There's something about becoming a woman that makes us feel small, that makes us feel that we are different. When a little girl starts to go through puberty, she starts to realize, as I did, with all these new body parts, that she's different from boys and maybe she can't run as fast, and she starts to think maybe she's not as smart, maybe she's not as confident, maybe she can't be as loud, maybe she can't do all the things that boys do. And we start as girls to focus on other things. We start to focus on being beautiful, focus on how we look and how we come across to others, focus on approval from others. I remember it was like in one summer, I went from someone who was confused and always assumed to be a boy from the way that I looked to a grown woman, like a grown woman in one summer, because I went through puberty. It was the summer between 5th grade and 6th grade, and I remember going to school as a 6th grader and feeling as an 11-year-old like I did not know what to do with my body. I didn't know what this body was anymore. I felt kind of like I was in a costume, but it was still my own body. And I remember gym class was something that I always cringed about, because in the locker room, the conversation, I don't know about your school, but we had to change. We had to change clothes. So the conversation was always about who had bigger boobs and who got their period. Right? And that was like a big deal. And I remember I would try, because there were like 2 bathroom stalls, I would try to like rush and take all my stuff to the bathroom stall so I could change into my gym clothes. And I didn't have to show my body to anyone else because I didn't want anybody to see my body. And that's when life started to change for me. And the Julia who was so loud and so funny and so full of life became the Julia who hid and was more quiet and was playing small. I started to categorize myself because I knew in middle school that people were going to start categorizing me. That's just the hierarchy of middle school, right? You have cliques, you have the popular kids. And because of the way that I felt about myself in middle school and even in high school, I started to say, you know what? Maybe I'm not that girl who has boyfriends or is good at dating or is popular, but I have a lot of friends because I'm cool. I'm the cool girl, but I'm smart. So I'm the smart, cool girl. And that's what I told myself I was. I was the smart, cool girl. So instead of focusing on what I used to focus on as a kid, which was like playing and sports and all sorts of things like that, I started to focus on doing well in school. That's what I took pride in. I remember going to spend all my free periods in high school in the library so I could study, so I could get my homework done. I remember if an assignment wasn't the grade that I wanted, I would ask my teacher for extra credit so I could do even better, so I could get even better grades. I was that kind of a girl. Yes, that was me. And I remember, you know, when your parents go to parent-teacher conferences, the one thing my mom would always come home and tell me that the teachers said about me was that I was a really good student, but I never spoke up. And they wanted to hear from me more. They wanted to hear me speak up in class. They wanted to hear my voice. And I remember being like, so what? I remember being so annoyed, like, why does it really matter? Why does it really matter if I speak up in class or not? I'm doing the work. But you know why I felt that way? Because deep down, I knew I was playing small and I was scared of my own power. I was scared of my own voice. And I didn't want to show up in that way. I didn't want that kind of attention in class. I didn't want people to know what I really thought. I wanted to stay small. I wanted to stay in the, you know, like in the smart girl section. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to speak up because I didn't want to have any sort of light shown on me. Because I had learned after going through puberty and my body just wasn't right and I just wasn't, you know, the popular girl and I was just smart. And so I said to myself, let me just be, you know, smart. Let me just be cool and smart. I have my friends, you know, I know a lot of people, but I'm smart and that's what I'm good at. I don't need to speak up. Why? Until one day, I came across this program called Urban Word. And it was this amazing spoken word poetry program. And it also taught creative writing, and it was in New York City. And it taught you how to do poetry slam competitions, spoken word poetry slam competitions. And I have no idea how I got involved in the program. I have no idea how long I was in the program, but what I do remember is it changed my life. This program absolutely, completely changed my life. And it inspired me in my voice because it was a space that was non-judgmental where my writing wasn't for a grade. My writing was for me. My writing was for me to be able to just connect with myself creatively, and all the things that I was holding in school, all the things that I was afraid to share, all the things I didn't want to have the light shown on me about, I could express through my poems. And I absolutely loved this. This was an outlet. This was like a free place for me to be myself. Until they told us that we were going to have to perform in front of other schools and other teenagers that we didn't know. Well, honey, I went right back into that shell and I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to get up on a stage. I don't want to speak in front of other people. I can't do that. No. And I remember one of the teachers was like, well, that's what this program is all about. And so I said, oh, okay. And I remember one of my first ever poetry slam competitions. There were all these high school students from all over the city. And it was in one of my favorite places in New York called Astor Place. And we went to this, it took place in this school called Cooper Union. It's an architecture school. And I remember getting up on stage and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. You know, these kids don't know me. Like, they don't go to my school. It doesn't matter, right? I got up there on the stage and I started my poetry, started my poem. And as I was speaking, there was this boy in the audience who was kind of like a jokester. Loud, a trickster. And he had been making comments throughout, I think. And as I was speaking, he threw his arms up and he went, "Ah," just like that. Really loud, yawning in the middle of my speech. And you know what I did? I literally stopped, looked at him, dropped the mic in the middle of my speech, and walked off the stage and went back to my seat. Everyone looked at me, but I just sat there. I sat there, crouched in the corner, going back to that old Julia where I didn't want anyone to look at me. I didn't want anybody to see my body. I didn't want anybody to notice me. I didn't want anybody to hear my voice. I didn't want anybody to hear my power. And after that poetry slam, when I was leaving, this teacher from a different school approached me and said, you know, you should never let anyone and their foolishness get in the way of you delivering your message to the world. And that really stuck with me. You should never let anyone or their foolishness get in the way of you delivering your message to the world. He said, we were all listening to you and your beautiful poem, and then we couldn't hear it. We couldn't hear anything after you walked off the stage. We didn't get to hear the beautiful message that you had to share with the world. And so after that, after I learned what he said and I really took it to heart, honey, I showed up even bigger than I had ever shown up before. I started enrolling in all sorts of poetry slams all over the city. I went to poetry slams at the Bowery Poets Cafe. I went to the Bowery Poetry Club, excuse me. I went to the New York Poets Cafe to do poetry slams, and I even made it to the semifinals of the all citywide competition. And I learned in that instant that nobody can take your power away from you except you. And that when you start to feel small, you have to show up even bigger, even brighter, even stronger. When you start to feel small, you have to bring that strength out and come even stronger out. That light needs to shine even brighter. And so here I am, right? Over 15 plus years later, speaking to all of you, still delivering my message to the world. So I want to challenge you today to think about how you are made to feel small in your own life. What is it that's making you feel small? And what are you going to do to show up and go even bigger in the face of feeling small? How are you gonna play it even bigger when you feel small? What are you gonna tell yourself to get yourself out of that feeling of playing small? How are you going to challenge yourself? I want you today to become more aware of your own actions when you start to feel small. And even though it feels counterintuitive when you start to feel small, to like go against that and do something even bigger, I want to challenge you to do that today. Because for every action that we have, every action that we take, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that reaction to our action is called resistance. That boy who was being rude and yawning loudly throughout my poem, that was just resistance. And we have to expect that, you know, things like that are going to happen. But we can't let resistance, we can't let people's foolishness, we can't let anyone get in the way of us delivering our message. So today, I want to encourage you to be aware of what you do when you start to feel small, and think about how you can go even bigger. Because when you do that, honey, when you do that, the universe, it will meet you and support you and bring you abundance in ways that you couldn't even imagine, can't even fathom. You can change your life because you can be more aware of what makes you feel strong in the face of feeling small. You can learn how to readjust and shift and pivot when you start to feel small and come out even bigger and shine your light. Don't be afraid of your power. Don't be afraid of your voice. Embrace it, because you are a powerhouse and you are awesome. And you have a beautiful message to share with the world. You can change your life because you can go big even when you feel small. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful, amazing day. If this resonated with you, please share it or leave me a comment. I appreciate you every single day for listening. Have an amazing, beautiful, love-filled day. And remember, be the love always.